Welcome to my channel, Veterans Legacy. Today, I want you to sit back, dim the lights, and let this story take you somewhere deep, somewhere quiet, because sometimes the things we laugh at are the things we later stand to honor in silence. This is the story of a Navy SEAL, an old man, and a name that echoed across an entire base. The wind came in sharp across Coronado that morning, kicking up sand across the grinder as a new batch of Bud.S candidates stretched under the bleak California sun. Among them was Petty Officer Lucas Grant, 26, iron-jawed, and already known among the instructors for his speed, his mouth, and his stubborn streak that could break a brick wall. Training was brutal, but Lucas ate it up. He'd push harder when the others started to crumble, grin when they groaned, and snarl when the instructors barked. Cockiness was practically sewn into his uniform. That morning, as the candidates finished their run, Lucas jogged toward the edge of the compound, wiping sweat from his brow. That's when he saw him. An old man stood near the rusted chain-link fence, small, hunched, wearing a faded navy cap pulled low over his eyes. His khaki windbreaker flapped loosely around his frail frame, and he leaned heavily on a wooden cane that looked older than half the recruits. Lucas slowed, squinting at the stranger. Civilians came by sometimes, mostly tourists or proud families, but this man didn't look like either. He looked like he'd come from somewhere far away, or from some distant time entirely. The old man nodded politely as Lucas passed. "Morning, son." "Morning," Lucas replied, but his tone carried that casual, dismissive confidence, the kind you use when you're sure the world belongs to you. The old man watched the SEAL candidates with a soft smile, eyes bright beneath the deep wrinkles carved by age and memory. "Hard training today," he said quietly. "Brings back some memories." Lucas chuckled. "You serve, old-timer." The old man didn't take offense. If anything, his smile widened. "A little," he said. "Back when things looked different." Lucas, drenched in sweat and adrenaline, smirked. "What was your rank?" There was no malice in his voice, just that youthful bravado, like he already knew the answer would be something small. The old man hesitated as if the question wasn't important. Then he said softly, "Admiral." Lucas burst into a short laugh. He couldn't help it. "Admiral, seriously." The old man didn't seem bothered. He simply nodded once, slowly. Lucas snorted. "Sure thing, sir. And I'm the president." "Not likely," the old man replied, and there was a gentleness in his voice, not mockery, but something wise, something Lucas wasn't ready to hear. Before the conversation could continue, Instructor Hayes bellowed from across the compound. "Grant, move." "Yes, instructor," Lucas shouted, sprinting back to formation. He didn't see the old man slowly turn, limping away from the fence, his cane tapping softly against the pavement. He didn't see the small metal pin tucked beneath the brim of the old man's cap, the five-star insignia dulled by decades of weather and war. He didn't see any of it. Not yet. Later that day, the base seemed unusually tense. There was a buzz among the staff, instructors huddled together whispering, officers walking briskly with somber expressions. Even the ocean seemed quieter. Lucas and the other candidates noticed but didn't dare ask. During chow, the commanding officer himself entered the hall, something that never happened unless there was serious news. Conversations died instantly. The CO cleared his throat, his voice carrying the weight of something heavy. "Attention on deck." Every tray dropped. Every man stood. "We received word that a highly decorated Navy hero has passed away early this morning." A ripple of silence spread like a cold wave. He served in multiple conflicts, commanded some of the most dangerous missions in our naval history, and shaped the very training you all stand here enduring today. Photographs began appearing on the screens around the mess hall, grainy black and white images of a much younger man, strong shoulders, piercing eyes, a jaw set with steel. Lucas froze. He knew that face. Fleet Admiral Thomas Keane, the CO announced, passed away at 0430 hours. The hall was silent, completely silent. Lucas felt the breath leave his lungs. No, that old man, the same old man he'd laughed at. A chill crawled up his spine as he remembered the soft smile, the quiet voice, the gentle patience. He remembered the cane, the faded cap. He remembered the word he'd laughed at. "Admiral," the CO continued, voice reverent. He dedicated over 50 years of service to the United States Navy. His leadership influenced generations. Today, As a sign of respect, the base will observe a moment of silence. Everyone bowed their heads. Everyone except Lucas, who stood frozen, eyes wide, jaw clenched, guilt rising like a tide threatening to drown him. He felt broken in a way no instructor could have managed. That evening, the candidates gathered on the grinder for sunset muster. The sky burned with fiery orange streaks fading into the soft blues of dusk. The flag snapped in the wind. A formation of sailors, Marines, and officers assembled, tight, pristine, solemn. A bell tolled slowly. A lone bugler played taps, the mournful notes drifting over the base like smoke. Lucas stood at rigid attention, but inside, he was falling apart. As the ceremony ended, Instructor Hayes approached him quietly. "Walk with me, Grant." Lucas followed, dread sinking deeper with each step. They walked toward the fence line, toward the spot where the old man had stood that morning. Hayes stopped, staring at the horizon for a long moment before speaking. "You met him, didn't you?" Lucas swallowed hard. "Yes, Instructor." "What did you say to him?" Lucas clenched his jaw. I didn't know who he was." "That's not what I asked." Lucas's throat tightened. "I laughed," he whispered. "I asked his rank." He said, "Admiral." I didn't believe him. Hayes let out a slow breath. "Grant, the thing about greatness is that it doesn't advertise itself. It doesn't brag. Men like Admiral Keene lived through hell so you could walk this base freely. And when someone like that tells you something, you listen. You honor it. You respect it. Because you have no idea what they've survived just to stand there." Lucas felt something hot burn behind his eyes. "I messed up," he said. "Yes," Hayes replied simply. "But you're not beyond fixing." There was kindness there, buried under the gravelly exterior, but it was real. "What do I do?" Lucas asked. Instructor Hayes pointed to the sand pit. "Kneel," he said. Lucas blinked. "Sir." "Kneel," Hayes repeated gently. Confused, Lucas dropped to one knee. "Put your hand on the ground." Lucas obeyed, fingers pressing into the cold sand. "That," Hayes said, "is the same sand Admiral Keene bled on when he trained here, before Bud S even had its name. That sand carries the echoes of every warrior who came before you. Touching it doesn't make you one of them, but understanding what it means might." Lucas stared at the grains beneath his hand, suddenly feeling tiny in a world built by giants. Hayes stepped back. "You want to honor him. Then earn the right to stand where he stood. Earn the right to wear the trident he helped define. Earn the right to never laugh at a warrior whose battles you'll never be able to imagine." Lucas nodded, wiping his face. Before the tears fell, "I will, Instructor. I know you will." The next morning, the base gathered again, this time for an honor ceremony few recruits would ever witness. A simple wooden casket draped with the American flag was escorted down the runway. Every sailor stood in rows, uniforms immaculate, faces solemn. As the casket passed, every man and woman raised their hand in salute. Every single one. Lucas stood ramrod straight, but inside he was a storm, pride and shame and grief swirling uncontrollably. When the casket reached the end of the line, a sailor stepped forward carrying the Admiral's cap. The same faded cap Lucas had seen. He watched as it was placed gently atop the folded flag. Something inside him shattered. That night, long after lights out, Lucas sat alone on his bunk, staring into darkness. He replayed every second of his encounter with the old man, every word he'd said, every heartbeat of the moment he took for granted. But then, he remembered something else. A short phrase, spoken so quietly he almost missed it. Back when things looked different. Not arrogant, not boastful, just true. Lucas exhaled shakily. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the darkness. The next morning, he ran harder than he ever had. Pushed faster, fought stronger. Every shout from the instructors became fuel. Every wave that knocked him down became a reminder. The Admiral had walked this path. And Lucas would walk it too. Not because he wanted to prove himself, but because he wanted to honor him. Because that's what legacy is. Not medals, not titles, but the lives you shape long after your own has faded. Weeks later, Lucas found himself at the grinder again, drenched in sweat, lungs burning, arms trembling. Around him, candidates yelled, dragged boats, crawled through mud. But Lucas wasn't the same man who had laughed that morning. He stood taller, spoke softer, worked harder. He had learned something that couldn't be taught in classrooms or beaten into him with surf torture. Humility, respect, gratitude. Instructor Hayes approached quietly, stopping beside him. You doing all right, Grant? Yes, instructor. Hayes nodded. You look different. I feel different. Hayes smirked. Good. Means you're starting to understand what the uniform really means. Lucas looked out at the ocean, waves crashing angrily against the shore. I won't forget him, he said. See that you don't. Months passed, and on one crisp morning, after pain, exhaustion, and more self-doubt than he ever imagined, Lucas Grant stood at attention with a small group of survivors. The sun glinted off the gold trident pinned to each of their chests. Lucas stared at his, fingers brushing the symbol that so many before him had died to earn. He whispered, "For you, Admiral." And though the wind carried his voice away, the promise remained. Welcome to my channel, Veterans Legacy. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of someone you love or someone you miss, then honor them, honor their name, their memory, their quiet sacrifices. And if you want more stories like this, more echoes of the heroes who built the ground we walk on, then please like, comment, and subscribe. Their legacies live on when we choose to remember them. Thank you for watching.